All right. Welcome to PiFi 83. How are you doing, Salty?
Hey, doing good, doing good.
I have been wanting to have,
Yeah,
oh, yeah, we have to have a toast. Pellegrino. Uh,
cheers.
cheers. I forgot. I need to have some of your traditions on the show. I've been wanting to have you on PiFi for a long time. I love interviewing veterans. I had I don't know if you've seen one of my first interviews about 10 or 12 years ago was with Clinton Riddle.
Right, right. I remember
Where
we did
that's
videos. Yeah,
that's right. We did the thank you videos for that, didn't
yeah,
we? And he was just like in tears whenever. So the audience knows Clinton Riddle was he's passed away now, unfortunately, and that's why I wanted to interview him. I did like a 6-part series. I did like 6 visits to him. He was an awesome guy. He's a World War II veteran who flew in. This was when the gliders. What were the gliders called that the Army flew in?
yeah. I don't know
What
that.
they weren't. What they did was they basically took normal, not normal. They were privates and trained them
Right.
to fly these shuttles, the gliders. Uh, and they weren't pilots. They weren't considered pilots, right? They
Right.
just trained them to fly these
Yeah.
gliders in, and
Basically,
they basically
you're gonna land this thing. There was no takeoff or anything. They just hands off until they let the string go, and then they were supposed to glide in and land.
yeah. I mean, they were basically crash landing. He told me that a lot of people, a lot of soldiers died just from like jeeps not being strapped down, and when they
Right.
would crash land,
Hit
people would get
trees or something. Yeah.
hit trees or whatever. So it's pretty dangerous. Anyway, ever since that experience, I really enjoyed uh, interviewing Navy veterans. So, and I like getting their experiences documented. And besides that, I've been friends on YouTube for how many
Yeah.
years? It's been,
At least 10. I remember it
yeah,
was through Richard Hunter.
right.
Yeah, when we kind
Because
of
I think,
connected.
yeah, 2023 was my 17th year on YouTube.
Yeah, I
So,
started in 2007, so I don't know
yeah,
how many of that.
2006 is when I started.
Yeah.
And it's been a trip. And I've got to know a lot of great people, and you're one of them. And
Same here.
so I really wanted to get you, and I wanted to talk about that experience with your Kentucky Colonel thing, but I wanted to talk about the Navy experience first, if you don't mind, and just kind of
Sure.
explain to people how you became to be, enlisted or, uh,
Yeah, it's it's kind of one of those divine intervention stories, and I've made a video about connecting the dots on where I got to where I am because of the Navy. But when I was when I was growing up, I my brother was in ROTC. And so, and I was always really infatuated with being in with the military, and I eventually wanted to join the military. And so, of course, you had the Army, Navy, Marines, and Air Force, right? So I like camping. I didn't want to do it for a living, no. So Army, and Marine Corps were out of the question. So that left the Air Force and Navy, and of course, my dad was a Coast Guard, was in the Coast Guard, and but my brother had joined the Navy, and he convinced me to join the Navy, and along with my other schoolmates, a friend of mine said, "Oh yeah, you don't want to join the Air Force because uh, unless you're a pilot, you're just going to be an aircraft mechanic." I was like, yeah, I want to do something besides being an aircraft mechanic. So I joined I signed up for the Navy to be a nuclear technician, because that's where the money was, right? So I asked, uh, what's the job in the Navy that will allow me to make the most money when I get out? Because of course, stories from friends and stuff. Yeah, I was a military policeman, but unless you want to be a cop when you get out, you really didn't have many choices. Same thing with like infantry. You're a machine gunner. What are you going to do when you get out? not too many people hiring machine gunners, right? So I signed up with the Navy, and I scored high enough in the ASVAB. And ASVAB is your entrance exam into the military, and I was able to qualify to go and be a nuclear technician. So signed my papers, everything. I went to take my physical. It's called MEPS. I don't know what the acronym for MEPS is, but when you join the military, everybody has to go, and they check your breathing, make sure you can lift so many pounds, and make sure you don't have flat feet and all that. And I was done. I was walking out the door to take the bus back home, and the guy who was assigning jobs, he came running up and he said, hey, just one more thing, not a big deal, everything's done, but just for our records, can you bring your birth certificate before you ship out? Just bring a copy of your birth certificate to your recruiter, and we'll get it into your personnel record. And I messed up, but in a good way. Eventually I said, oh, I've been using this for a birth certificate. And I pulled out my green card because I was born in the States. I was a permanent resident, right? Because my dad was a citizen, and all I had to do was just apply for citizenship, and it was just a done deal. But I didn't know that because my dad was ill by the time I was, graduated high school and ready to join the Navy. And so he never told me, oh, you just have to go and apply for citizenship. And I think I did try to apply a few times, but the town I was in was such a small town. There was no official office, was it immigration office. I think the closest town was like maybe Houston or Dallas or something, or San Antonio if you wanted to get faster results. But anyway, so I said, come back. We got to give you another job. So I went back to the office to get job assignments, and the first thing they gave me, they gave you these little cards, job description cards. And the first thing they gave me was called Boiler Tech. And my brother said, no matter what you do, never ever choose Boiler Tech. So if you don't remember anything, remember that.
Because you get stuck in the lowest part of the ship or something?
Yeah, you were basically in the engine room, which is like 120 degrees, 24/7, just miserable.
No windows.
Yeah, no windows. And so I was like, nope, not doing that. And they said, okay, well, how about this other job? And it was a personnelman. So basically you handled personnel records. And I was like, I hate paperwork. I can't, I don't want to be a paper pusher. I was like, all right, well, yeah, one last job. If you don't take this, then, you're going to go in what they call undesignated. So you'll just go in as a basic seaman, and they tell you what to do. And lo and behold, it was an aircraft mechanic. So I avoided joining the Air Force because I didn't want to be an aircraft mechanic. I ended up joining the Navy, and they gave me aircraft mechanic. But at the time, it's like, well, I guess that's the best I can do for now. And he said, well, what you can do is once you get your citizenship, you can reclassify to nuclear technician, and
But that seems like a very interesting job, though, aircraft technician. I mean,
yeah. And then like I said, it's kind of divine intervention, because at the time, one of my sister's boyfriends, he built model airplanes and flew model airplanes, and so I got into building model airplanes, and so I understood flight mechanics and nomenclature and stuff like that of airplanes. So I was like, yeah, okay, I understand aircraft. I can put up with it for a little while until I can get to become a nuclear technician.
What year did you enlist?
I enlisted in 1988. Actually, 1987. I did a year of what's it called? Where you sign up but you don't ship out for like a year. Delayed entry. Yeah, I did the delayed entry, But my recruiter, God bless him. If you don't know anything about Filipinos, one of the cultural things about Filipinos is they don't look you in the eye. If you talk to a native Filipino person who grew up in the Philippines, they won't look you in the eye. So when you talk to them, they're always kind of looking off to the side. but he was my recruiter, and basically I was a freebie for him because he didn't have to convince me to join. I was already willing to join and knew what I wanted to do. But yeah,
Where did you get deployed?
My first squadron was shore based out in San Diego. So I did 4 years out in San Diego, and then from there I went to advanced school for every Navy. Well, most Navy jobs have what they call an A school, which is your basic technical school. So you got boot camp, and then you got your basic tech school, and then some job specialties have what they call a C school, which is an advanced technical school. So I went to A school, did 4 years out in San Diego, and then I went to C school and got stationed out in Virginia. And my first 6-month deployment was to the Mediterranean. But I did deploy to Cuba for 3 months also.
I guess that was right after the Gulf War.
Yeah, because when I was stationed out in San Diego, that's when that was when Desert Storm, Desert Shield happened, and it was actually more work staying stateside than it was getting deployed for my squadron anyway, because we were a training squadron, so we were already understaffed, and I guess with most military fields, and unless you're like a combat squadron or something like that, you kind of get the leftovers. So we were understaffed, under-equipped, and so when the Gulf War happened, half of our squadron deployed. So the people who stayed behind, they had to do 3 times more work because we were already half staffed, so now we're only a quarter staffed.
The bearded guy wants to know: did you ever work on the F-14s?
No, I was mainly a helicopter mechanic. I worked on H-3s in San Diego, and I worked on H-46s, the twin rotor helicopters out in Virginia, and that's where I got my logo.
I think I have a picture of that.
Yeah, I was. That was my first deployment, and one of my shipmates, I said, "Hey, take a picture of me, directing aircraft," because that was one of my side jobs. Was it's called an LSE, landing signalman enlisted. So I would, that was the picture before the logo picture. Yeah, so I would marshal the helicopters into land and take off. Yeah, that's me working on a work platform. So my primary job was an airframes mechanic. So I fixed sheet metal, I changed hydraulic pumps and tires, and replaced screws and stuff like that. And then my secondary job was I was a what they call a non-destructive inspector. So I would inspect critical parts for cracks on a routine basis.
So that's what I always had the impression that you all were always in uniform, or what when you're doing this work, that you have these work clothes, I guess you use.
Yeah, for aviation, when you're deployed, we have different color shirts, so it's kind of like Star Trek. Green shirts are what they call troubleshooters. So green shirts are the mechanics. Brown shirts are what they call plane captains. They're the ones that do the routine maintenance. Yeah, that's. I shaved my head because there was only one barber on the ship. So one of the guys in my detachment brought a pair of clippers, and he would just shave everybody's head, so we wouldn't have to go see wouldn't have to wait to go see the barber. That is the what do you call the precipice to the salty shellback name. When you cross the equator, there's a hazing a hazing process called Wog Day, right? So everybody who hasn't crossed the equator is what they call a polywog, and they give you this sheet of instructions that all polywogs have to follow, and one of them is you have to shave your left leg. So everybody had to shave their left leg. You had to roll up your left leg, pant leg, and you had to crawl on the floor during the hazing operation. And it was an all day, all morning till afternoon affair. And once you go through the hazing initiation, they dunk you in this big water tank, and then when you pull you out, they say, "What are you?" And if you say, "I'm a polywog," you have to go back through again. But if you say, "I'm a shellback," and it's like, "Okay, you're good. You can get out." So anybody who's any Navy personnel who have crossed the equator have gone through shellback initiation, you get a nice plaque or poster saying where you crossed the equator, what date, and what ship. So
those traditions are awesome, I think.
Yeah. This is one of the detachments when I was out in San Diego. We off the coast of Los Angeles, there's an island called San Clemente Island. That's where like the Navy SEALs training stuff too. But one of the operations my squadron did was we would launch these torpedo noisemakers that simulate a submarine, and it would just swim around and make noises like a real submarine. And then of course the Navy submarines would practice, locating them and shooting at them.
Is that it right there on the bottom of the helicopter?
Oh, that's something one of the officers made out of scrap that he found around the
No, you're kidding.
No. Yeah, I think
it looks real.
Yeah, the tip is like a styrofoam thing off of off a net.
That's funny.
And I think that's a PVC pipe. The fuselage is a PVC.
pipe. The Russians are looking at going, what kind of secret weapon is that?
Yeah.
Funny.
Yeah, so that was our detachment. This was when I was on the USS Tripoli. We went up to San Francisco from San Diego for Fleet Week. So it's 2 weeks where, the whole city welcomes the Navy. I don't know if they still do it now. I don't know what people in San Francisco feel about the military, but back then they loved the military. You could actually go and they had tents where you could look up a phone number where people will leave their numbers and you can call them and they'll take you out to dinner and, bring you to their house and have a home cooked meal. And it was pretty cool. It was like host a sailor. So yeah, San Francisco did that for Fleet Week. This was back in '91. So
my memory of San Francisco is they used to have, I don't know if they still have, I think it was an old World War II submarine there. You could go take a tour through.
Yeah, I think.
And it was very claustrophobic. I didn't realize I was claustrophobic until I went through that thing. They literally had cages up on, so you couldn't get to the dials and
right.
And that made it even worse. And so you had this long line of people going through like back to back, and I was almost getting to the point where I was pushing. I was like, okay, move along, people, move along.
Yeah, I saw it. I saw it on the pier. I didn't tour it though.
I don't think you missed much. It was there's your logo.
Yeah.
Picture.
So that's part of what I did in the detachment. I was a landing signalman, and I really liked it. It was really cool. Kind of.
That's an awesome picture.
Yeah.
I was curious about this.
This was what we call Haitian Vacation. Back in, I think, 94, 95. There was the second coup attempt in Haiti. and the Navy was getting ready to deal a lot of hurt to the Haitians that were trying to overthrow the government. And literally the 11th hour, we had all the aircraft turned up. We had Harriers. Those bombs went on Harriers. I think we had like 12 Harriers, like 3 big H-53s full of, I think there were like 40 Marines in each 53. And they had Cobras. The Marines had Cobra gunships. And, everybody was turning up, getting ready to take off to just deal some hurt. And all of a sudden, all the lights came on, and all the helicopters and aircraft turned off. And we're like, well, what's going on? It's like, they surrendered.
Huh. Is that like a 500-pounder?
Yeah, that's a 500-pound bomb there.
That's a big boy.
Yeah. And of course, the ordnance guys were pretty miserable because then now they have to clean off all the writing on the bombs.
Just paint over it.
That's Boris. This was in Haifa, Israel, one of the ports on my first deployment. He is a Russian, well, he claims to be a Russian defector.
I was going to say he looks like a Russian.
Yeah. His name was Boris, and you could trade stuff with him. So you could trade, your hats from your ship or like belt buckles with the ship logo and stuff, and he would trade you cheap Russian things. And I actually, I think I still have like the Russian hat seal with the hammer and sickle on it. It's pretty cool. But yeah, that was Boris. Interesting character.
Is it true that you board the ship? There's a certain parts that you had to stop and salute the ship, a salute to ship and our flag.
Yeah, as you board the ship, yeah, there's usually a flag on the fantail on the back end of the ship. So you would salute that, and then you would salute the I can't remember, the quartermaster guard, and you ask permission to come aboard, show them your ID, and they say, "Yep, come aboard." Yeah, that was that was the day before Christmas, 1993. I was on my detachment. So the way our squadron worked, we had 2 helicopters that would be deployed with different ships, and mainly tenders, oilers, ammunition ships, and even like what they call USNS, United States Navy ships. But they're civilian ships, but they're run by civilians, but there's a Navy component on the ship that receives orders from the fleet on where to go and what to do. So anyway, I was on my detachment, and the technician on the ship in the picture here, he got sick on right before Christmas Day. Was their last mission, and they were getting ready to go back to the States. Their deployment was towards the end, so they had one last mission, and they needed a technician on there to do specialized inspections. And so there's only one technician of my type on each ship. So when he got sick, they flew him to the hospital, I think in Italy. So they flew me. I got done with my mission. They flew me over to his ship, and so I took care of their last mission. Yeah, that's Detachment 2. Yeah.
I was trying to figure out what that pick that
it's a cowboy with a bandana mask. It's
I see.
Profile. Okay. Yeah, so that's yeah. But so my ship was pulling into Toulon, France, but I had to spend Christmas Day out at sea. That's the WOG Day. That hat. This is one of the helmets on the ship. I don't know. It's like one of those Star Wars helmets.
That's funny.
Thing. Yeah, but so we had to paint WOG on our shirts too.
That was before you crossed over the
equator. Yeah.
Equator.
That was when I was in technical school or A school. I joined the Navy drill team. The Navy student drill team. The Navy has like a professional drill team, but this was the student drill team in aviation school. And one of the things you had to do was you had to stand what they call quarterdeck guard, quarterdeck watch. So that was my thinner days.
Good looking.
Yeah.
Uh-oh, got the belt.
Yeah, that was on the Tripoli.
Is that 50 cal? What is that?
Yeah, those are 50 cal casings. They were doing an exercise where, basically they had to expend all their ammunition.
I was going to say, I just realized they're just casings. That's funny.
Yeah, those are just casings.
That's funny.
But they had, they had an exercise where the gunner's mates had to shoot to qualify or whatever. Basically, they were just spending ammo so they don't have to inventory it. And I also got some was it 5-inch gun casings too, but I don't know what I did with them. But they were just kicking the brass over the side. It's like, hey, can I have that? And it's like, yeah, sure. So they gave me the ammo boxes, so I filled up like 2 ammo boxes full of 50 caliber casings. That was my first re-enlistment. Well, the only re-enlistment. When you re-enlist, you're allowed to pick the location where you re-enlist. You can do it while aircraft is flying. So it's kind of like your last meal before they put you in the electric chair. So when you re-enlist, you get to choose who swears you in, and you get to choose where you get sworn in. And that's Lieutenant Marr. She was a very, very nice officer. She really cared about the troops. She helped us with our advancement testing. She would have practice questions and stuff like that, and had a library of study material.
Is that just your like enlistment certificate?
Yeah, that's my re-enlistment. Yeah, that's my re-enlistment certification. So I did that on the work platform on top of a helicopter.
I was going to say, it looks like the blade of a.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I re-enlisted on top of the helicopter. I didn't really think about where I wanted to re-enlist, but I didn't want to just do it in the commanding officer's office.
Oh.
That was kind of lame.
I thought I had more pictures than that. That's pretty awesome. Those are great pictures.
Yeah, I have a few more, but they're just kind of tourism pictures.
Well, I want to ask you, this may be a weird question for you, but are you from, I'm just going to ask you, did you ever see anything weird like UAPs, UFO, or anything like that while you were out to sea, or?
Not that I can recall. I mean, when you're out at sea at night, you can look from horizon to horizon, and it was just dark. I mean, it's a neat experience where it's just complete total darkness, but you're outside, and you can see the stars. So I mean, we saw meteor showers and stuff like that, but nothing really unusual that I can recall. No UFOs or UAPs now.
This area, I was trying to find this area. What is that area out there off the coast of Southern California where they train? Catalina Island? Does that sound familiar?
Well, yeah, there's Catalina Island. There's also San Clemente Island.
I want to bring that up right quick because this has been the isn't that the area where the Tic Tacs were seen?
I'm not sure.
Let's see. Let me see. Screen share. I'm trying to get rid of this one. So I was trying to bring up the map, but let me just screen share the whole thing. That will not remove. I can't remove that thing. There we go. Okay, I did it. Sorry. Bad producing. Bad show producing. Here we go. I'm going to do the entire screen so I can just avoid this. So, from what I understand, isn't the
San Clemente Island south of there, right there? So
here we go. Okay.
San Clemente Island.
weren't they training? The Navy pilots were training in this area, right?
I don't know about the Navy pilots. I know the SEALs train on there because there was like one night where if it sounded like a war zone. I mean, just automatic gunfire and flares going up and a lot of yelling on San Clemente Island.
Maybe somebody in the chat can verify this. Oh, bearded guy has to go. Thanks for being a part of the show tonight, the bearded guy. I can't remember exactly, but I could have sworn this area here. What do you think about that? Did you all? I mean, you all never did any training where. What I'm curious about is that some of this training for the pilots, would they secretly have some sort of technology that they would train the pilots with without telling them? Is that a possibility?
That's a possibility, yeah. Because I mean, my experience was they would, what we did out there was, like I said, we dropped these torpedo-looking things, and they would just swim around, and I guess they would put out certain noises and stuff that would mimic a submarine. So I'm sure that there were other things that they would launch, that would kind of trick other submarines. So maybe they would use for aircraft, they might use like unmanned vehicles to I would say trick, but to simulate, a hostile aircraft or something.
I've mentioned this before, and people would debate me about it and say, no, the Navy or the military would never trick. And I always kind of revert back to I have this little snippet of the video where they're doing the nuclear testing, and the soldiers are walking towards the
Right.
I mean, it's literally just have the set off the nuclear explosion, and they woke up. They get up out of the trenches, and they're walking towards the mushroom cloud.
Yeah, yeah.
So
yeah, there's a movie about that, right?
Yeah, whenever somebody tells me the military would never do anything like that, I always have to revert back to that one. But I don't think it's. I mean, that wouldn't be that unsafe of a training.
And I wouldn't say it was directly the military. I would say maybe like one of the alphabet organizations would say, hey, you never saw me, you never heard, you never knew of this situation, but we need your pilots to go here, or whatever. And then and then they would test out whatever super secret stuff they would test out, and see how the pilots would react. So I would say that's plausible.
But you never heard anything like that. You never.
No.
I guess that's all compartmentalized.
Yeah, I remember on one of my deployments, my chief, we had to do we had to do this training to get qualified for what they call air warfare, and you get a special pin once you pass this training course. And one of the things we had to learn was different categories of messages. And I think one of the categories was called a ZAP message. So it's like an emergency message. And so my chief showed me, and this was the days before email was open to the general public, but the military used email. And so he showed me this printout of an email, and it was a ZAP message. And I'm reading it, and it was like some country, in Africa was getting attacked, so we need to deploy there and help with operations. And I was like, wow. He goes, nah, it's just a test message or something like that. It's just a simulation message.
That's not very nice, right?
Yeah. I'm reading it. I was like, oh my gosh, are we going there? And he just kind of chuckles like, nah, it's just a simulation message.
How do you know the difference between?
I didn't know. I mean, my chief might have known, but yeah. Because it they used like dot matrix printers, so all the messages look the same.
I've used my last I guess the last dot matrix printer I had was in 90. I think I had one all the way up to 1990. I'm pretty sure I had one through.
Yeah, I had one in college. I
Yeah.
used one when I was in college, and that was in 2000. So, yeah, and then after that, I think I had like an inkjet. But yeah, now everything is either inkjet or laser.
So have you seen the Go Fast video you've seen those videos that were released?
Mm-mm.
Oh, you haven't seen the Go Fast? You have the videos supposedly released by the Navy.
I saw one where, and you interviewed that one F-16 pilot. I remember that, and I can't
Chris
remember if
Lato.
at the same time.
Yeah, I think it was Chris Lato.
Lato, yeah.
Yeah.
And I saw he was talking about how the trajectory of the UAP was not like normal to any any known aircraft, and so I remember watching that, but I haven't seen anything recently. But yeah, I just actually I heard there's a Navy SEAL, a former Navy SEAL that does these scary stories. It's called Mr. Ballin.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Sean Ryan.
No, this guy, his name's John Allen, but his channel is Mr. Ballin, John B. Allen. But he talked about in South America somewhere, some town in South America where there's like a lot of gang activity, and this kid was playing near the river where there was a lot of gang activity, and his parents said, don't go there, it's dangerous. But he went there anyway, and he saw some buzzards across the river, and of course that means they were like feeding on some dead animal or something. So he threw rocks at the buzzards so he could see what the buzzards were eating. And when the buzzards flew away, because he couldn't cross the river, but when the buzzards flew away, it looked like a human body. So he ran home, told his mom. His mom called the authorities, and the authorities went to location and saw the dead body. And usually when that happens, it makes the news, and they explain, oh, well, this guy was drunk or whatever. But in this situation, it was really bizarre because there was like no news about it. It was just all covered up. And then, of course, in 1994 or something, somebody leaked information that it seemed like this guy was like abducted by aliens because he had holes all over his body and all his innards were sucked out and like half his face was missing. And coincidentally, a lot of reports from before that were a lot of cows that had the same thing happened to them. Half their face was taken. There were holes all over these cows, and all their innards were sucked out. So they didn't want the people to panic, so that's why they covered it up. But this guy, he was on the inside of all this information, and he leaked the story to the news. But apparently, this area in South America has a high.
Is it Peru?
I think it's Peru. Yeah.
Yeah, because they have the most recent story out of there is the I don't know if you've seen that story where they had the villagers claim that they had an alien attack or whatever.
Yeah, that might have been the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
But this happened, a long time ago, and it just kind of surfaced in like 1994, 96, or even maybe 2004. I can't remember, but if you look up Mr. Ballin, Ballen, and let me see what the.
So there was no. I don't know. It's just funny because some of the people I talk to that have been in the military, it's not really like an issue like it is like for groups of people outside the military. Like you have you have groups of people on UFO Twitter, you have a whole community there, you have all these groups of people, but it seems like my brother was in the military. He never talked about one of my best friends was retired. He retired lieutenant colonel in the Air Force. I would always ask him about these things. He never saw anything. My brother never saw anything. You know, I have never talked to anybody who's actually been in the military who's actually seen anything. But yet you have this whole genre of people. You know what I mean? You
Yeah.
have people who, when they leave the military, come out like, you know, Lieutenant Fravor and Ryan Graves and that the Dietrich, Alex Dietrich, that those three, you know, those pilots. Um, it's just I'm trying to understand. I'm trying to wrap my head around how, you know, people who are coming out of the military are making these claims, but the people I talk to, who I know that were in the military, never even heard of such a thing.
Right. Yeah. I mean, for the average military person, we actually know less than the public does. Because, like, I should have sent you those pictures, but I was actually off the coast of Mogadishu either the day before or the day of the Black Hawk Down situation. We were off the coast of Mogadishu flying supplies into the NATO base there, and we still had like 4 or 5 crates left on the deck. And the helicopter came in. I was the signalman, and came in for a landing. And when there's crates, I usually tell them to hold while the other crewmen are loading the helicopter. And all of a sudden, the pilot just shut the helicopter off. So I kind of asked them what's going on, and they just said, hold on, and got out. And it's like, what happened? I mean, we still got some crates to deliver. And it's like, well, air traffic controller told us to go back to the ship and go away. Yeah, that's what we call vertical replenishment. So those big crates there, yeah. So they'll come in and hover over the crate, and then there's a stick and with a loop at the end. And then what you do is you hook the loop onto the cargo hook in the middle of the helicopter, and they pick up the cargo, fly over to wherever they need to drop off the cargo, and then there's an air crewman inside that's working the release. So
but this is you're part of a carrier group, right?
Yeah. This was on the USS Savannah. It was an oiler, so it looks like a big oil tanker.
So it's not like you're separated from. It's not like you're not with an aircraft carrier who would, because you always hear about when people have sightings. It always seems like it's from an aircraft carrier or some kind of support. Some ship that was that supports an aircraft carrier.
Yeah, we were essentially a floating gas station. So we would, pull into port, resupply, refuel, and then whatever the schedule is, we'll go out and meet up with other ships, and they would shoot a line over to the other ship, and then they would eventually pull over a big, large cable, and then they would winch over fuel lines, and they would fuel whatever ship. I think the capacity was like 1 million gallons per minute is how much fuel we could pump into the carrier.
How do they protect your ship if you're in a battle? If you're in a war zone?
We're basically cannon fodder.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You would think that you would be like, in the middle of the group where if you couldn't be, you know what I mean? You'd be protected.
Yeah, I mean, you have destroyers and cruisers that would protect us, but we were low priority over say the carrier or the or a bigger ship or something. But yeah.
So
and
how
if
many
there was a battle,
are the aircraft carriers nuclear powered, or are they?
I think they all are now. The last non-nuclear powered one was the USS America, and I actually have a picture. You want me to email it to you real quick?
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Okay. Let me get into my email here.
Because it just occurred to me. You said it was a giant. It was a refueling ship, and I wondered how much of that fuel do you have to have for like what kind of operations, what kind of equipment on board runs that needs that type of fuel after it's
Yeah, it's mostly what they call jet fuel, JP5.
Oh, the in your ship.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I thought it was like
Well,
diesel.
we have fuel oil, but most of what we carry is jet fuel.
Huh. I was thinking. Why was I thinking? That was a dumb. I'm thinking World War II diesel fuel. That's funny.
Okay.
I guess what I'm trying to wrap my head around is is it a real threat? Is it a real if you were in a carrier group and you never heard of any you had never heard of any safety issues with pilots training, right? While they were training?
Yeah, not that I'm aware of. Not in my in my exposure to what we did. We were probably low priority uh, as far as
But I mean, you would have heard if one if an F-14 had gotten forced down by UFO, that would have been something you would have heard, right? Or maybe
Uh,
or not.
the news travels pretty slow. Like I said, you know, we didn't even know what was going on in Mogadishu until like a month later, when somebody got a newspaper from home, and they're like, "Hey, weren't we just there like last month?" So yeah, so it you would think that being in the military and being on on site, that you would know more than what's going on, know more than the people at home. But nope, it's the actually the opposite.
Hmm.
Let's see, that picture, and that picture.
What is this? Some sort of what is this gear you've got? Is that not vision?
Yeah, night vision goggles. That was one of the things I was qualified for, was doing landing landing signalman without lights.
See,
So
one of the videos that was released was supposedly filmed through some sort of night vision equipment.
yeah,
On,
probably that. I
on the
mean,
back.
that's like first or second generation night vision. The air crewmen actually had better night vision than the ship crew did. They had like third or fourth generation night vision goggles, whereas I think we had like first or second generation, and we only had one sensor, and we looked through two screens, whereas they had a screen in each scope. So yeah, I just emailed you some more pictures.
I was going to show you this. I don't know if I was am I screen sharing? Am I still screen sharing?
No.
Okay. Stop screen sharing. Present. I'm just going to show my entire screen. That way I can flip around. This is the one I was talking about here.
Yeah,
That
I've seen that video.
so some people are claiming that this is the bokeh effect, where the night vision creates this triangular effect.
Right,
Because
right.
is that true?
I I've I work with infrared, which is very similar. So night vision works on
So yours would look more like
light
this.
enhancement. Yeah. See, that's thermal infrared there.
Yeah, this is the video. This is the splash video where it shows it going into the water. So they call this the splash video.
Right.
See, supposedly it splashed,
Yeah.
and then you have this one, which
Yeah.
is
It depends on the sensors. The depends on how the sensor array is made up. So and then a lot of the software um, basically guesses where the light should be, which pixel should be lit up, and and since it's doing it on the fly, it may give you a different shape than what the real shape is. There's also what they call a rolling shutter. So I don't. If you look up rolling shutter on YouTube, there's videos on how rolling shutter works. So depending on how the shutter of the camera works, it as the object moves, it captures different parts of the actual object in um, different frames.
But infrared's done digitally, right? Not with shutters, right? It's done with sensors.
Yeah, it's done with sensors, but still the data collection could be a rolling, either rolls horizontally or rolls vertically.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's not a physical shutter.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I had this vision of the old shutters, how they work.
Yeah. No.
And I think that's what some people are trying to claim that triangular effect is.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure. I just, I'm just kind of stuck in the middle of understanding what people are seeing and what to think.
Yeah. I
Because
mean, there anything's possible, plausible. I watched this short clip, an interview with Neil deGrasse Tyson. I'm
yeah,
not a fan of his, but there are some nuggets of good information. And he was talking to some other researcher, and he says, "How much of space do we really know about?" And she said, "Well, if all of space was the Earth's ocean, we know about as much as a glass of water."
yeah,
So
probably less than that.
yeah, at best. And so, she said, if you want to know if the ocean has fish, but all you're given is this glass of water, then you can say, no, there's no fish in the ocean. Based on what we know right now in this glass of water, there's no fish in the ocean. So, based on what we know, the quantity we know about space, it's hard to say that we know that there is life or not life in other places.
I don't see. I think there is life out there. I just don't know if what we're seeing. I'm trying to form an understanding or what I think about what we're seeing. Right.
Do
Um,
I know of drones being launched by submarines? I'm not aware of any drones. Do you mean like flying drones or submarine swimming around drones?
I know they have some form of drone. Right. That I don't. I just not. I'm not sure that it's can leave the water. Right.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any. I know what we launched were essentially drones that like I said, they simulate an enemy submarine, or they could simulate whales, or they could simulate a surface ship or something like that. That's all I know. They're big. Let me see if I have that picture. I just know they're big orange torpedo looking things that we launched. But yeah, I'm not aware of submarine sending drones out.
Flying. He's saying flying.
Okay, nah,
Well,
nah.
I guess the one of the theories is that they have these drones that can, or what is the term? They're water, air. They're like the
Right,
Marines, water, air, and sea, or whatever.
right.
Land, water, air. Uh, but huh. I mean, what are your personal thoughts on the whole thing?
Uh, like I said, anything's possible, and there's different opinions on. One opinion, a friend of mine said, "Do I believe in aliens?" He said, "No, because they would kill all the men and procreate with all the women." Lizard people, right?
Huh.
Because that's what humans have done to other civilizations. They when they invade a land, they kill all the men and they procreate with all the women. So if there is life out there, they either haven't found us, or they found us and just don't want us to know that they're there. Um,
Well, I mean, you had
and,
it's if you look at the difference in the countries who colonized early on, like Great, the UK, Great Britain
Hmm.
and France. The Great Britain would go in and pretty much take over an area, like you're saying, right? But the
Yeah,
French would go in and try to just work with the people who were there, right? And they just
right. And the Spanish
yeah.
were kind of like that too.
Well, of course, it depends on where they went, right? Because when they
Right.
went to South America, they killed a bunch of
Yeah.
you know people there.
And it depends on what they were looking for too. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I guess they're looking for gold or whatever. They're gonna be a little more violent or whatever. But I guess so. It depends on whether how much we're needed. I guess.
I listened to an audiobook that's really good. It's called 1493, and it talked about the Spaniards colonizing South America, and they were surprisingly very accommodating and very inclusive with the natives of South America versus, in the U.S. side of things. They were very brutal to the Native Americans, um, which is different from what they did with the South Americans. But it was so yeah. If you get a chance, look up a book called 1493,
Hmm.
um, and it talks about the uh, unintended consequences or the outcomes from the voyages of Columbus. And it's kind of a loose theme, but the subject, uh, the stories in that book were very educational. I've listened to it like 3 or 4 times, and every time I listen to it, I pick up something new. It's really informative. It's the history they don't teach you in school, basically.
Yeah. On the other hand, it's hard to go. But it's hard to sit here with all of our luxuries now and complain about what happened. You know what I mean? Because
Right, right.
obviously, if all those things hadn't taken place, our country wouldn't be the way.
Yeah. I mean, it's human nature,
Yeah, I mean,
It's
I'm not justifying what happened. I'm just
yeah.
saying it's easy for us to judge now. It's
Mhm.
hindsight's 2020, as they say.
Right.
But um, who knows what would have happened if we had been a nicer.
Yeah.
Uh,
And
who,
it's all about motivations too, because there were some uh, Americans or some British people who colonized the Americas who were very friendly to the Native Americans, and then there were others that came over that and I've been listening to these podcasts of companies that were doing really really good, and the management was ideal, perfect company, and then they hire a new manager or a new CEO, and the whole company just tanks. So, on a larger scale, on a larger global scale, those things happen. You get a group that does really well with another group, and then they change management, and it just goes to crap.
I'm even hearing local stories around here where when I bought this property up on this mountain, where the there's these tales of the settlers and the Native Americans got along fine until there
Yeah.
was this push because where I live now is right on the Trail of Tears. One of the Trail of Tears, if you look, it goes through across Flat Top Mountain where I live, down into Dunlap, over to through East Tennessee or West Tennessee, out that way. And so there's these like local legends of where the settlers would trade moonshine
Yeah.
and beaver pelts and all this stuff with the Native Americans, and they lived peacefully until they were kicked out. You know,
Right.
and
Yeah. And then the white men were guilty by association.
right, right.
One
While
of the
all that time they were living, peacefully among each
Yeah.
other. Yeah.
There's a story in that 1493 book where there was an island off the coast of China where the Spanish would trade with the Chinese. Well, where at I think it was like in the 1500s, where the 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 mainland Chinese government banned all trade with outsiders, right? Um, so, but on this one island, um, it was like black market trading. So and the the Chinese population just kind of looked the other way because they wanted the trade, but it was the government that didn't want the trade. But on this island, it was always back and forth over decades. You know, one span of time they got along great. Another span of time, the Chinese would kill the Spanish, and another time the Spanish would kill all the Chinese, and it would just go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. But you know, the economy was what kind of got things back to some semblance of normalcy. So,
can you talk about what you're doing now as far as work?
Yeah, I do a little bit of everything, but my main job description is a quality director. So what I do is I'm in charge of the quality system of the company. My division does inspections on raw materials. So metal bars, forgings, and stuff like that. So we inspect for defects, basically. So
do you do like the scanning electron microscope? You go that deep, or
no. We use ultrasonic instruments. Basically, it's a probe that sends sound into a part. If there's a defect in the part, the screen will say, "Hey, there's something there," and there's processes on how we can determine what that defect is, and there's specifications that tell us, how sensitive we need to make the instrument and stuff like that. But
what's the most exotic material that you've tested?
This stuff called Inconel 625. It's one of the most corrosion resistant materials in the industry. What we do is we do an acid etch on it, and then we do a dye penetrant test to see if there's any cracks on the surface. And it takes a special formulation of acid to etch this stuff. We try to etch it in industry standard stuff, and you can leave that stuff in there forever, and it wouldn't touch it.
What's the material used for?
It's for aircraft parts. Yeah, they use it to make aircraft parts. Yeah. High temperature, high erosion applications like gas turbines, jet engines.
Daniel Boone says element 115. That's funny. I was going to say, sounds like reverse engineering UFOs to me, man. I don't know. The material you're testing.
Unobtainium.
Have you heard of Gary Nolan?
Sounds familiar, but I'm not.
He's a I guess he's a scientist. It's funny. But I think he also teaches at Caltech. What is it? Someone that Dan Villiers is a friend of mine. He's out there. I've had him on PiFi before. But he apparently has some of the samples of some of the exotic materials supposedly that have come from UAPs or whatever.
Right.
Crashed vehicles.
It's interesting. I was watching a documentary a long time ago about Area 51 and the materials they found, and one of the sections of the documentary was like the farmer described this material that came off this vehicle as it was very light, it was very flexible, and it was metallic, and you can scrunch it up and it would revert back to its original shape, and even at that time I'm thinking something like mylar.
Wasn't that Roswell?
Roswell, yeah, I guess Roswell.
Yeah.
I was like, that sounds like mylar.
Yeah, but did we have mylar back in I guess we did.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't commercially, prevalent, but maybe mylar came from the UFO. But and then there was like weird symbols on the back, and then of course the explanation. It sounds legit to me, but basically it was a test balloon, and they contracted a company that made kids wallpaper. So they had all this extra kids wallpaper, and they used that as backing to the Mylar to make this experimental weather balloon. But that's the official explanation. But even though, but it sounds closer to legit than a conspiracy theory that, the actual explanation came out. Yeah, that's what those symbols are. And they actually showed a picture of the wallpaper in people's houses. But then, of course, nowadays you got deep fakes and stuff like that. This was before deep fakes was a thing, but how do we know how long deep fakes have been around? It's just the information age that we're aware of these things, but we are, how aware are we of how long these things have been around? Like you said, was Mylar around back then? How long was it? How long has it been around? We don't know.
Well, I put out a call for questions from the viewers out there. If you have any questions for Salty, put them in the chat and I'll see them and ask. Well, I mean, this whole thing is kind of a mystery to me. I want to think that what we're seeing are like true. I guess my best guess is that maybe these are, scout ships or whatever. I mean, when I think about the Voyager missions, one being in deep space now, right?
Right.
How many years ago was that? 25 years ago? I forgot how many years ago. It was in the 70s, I guess.
Did you hear that one of the probes that took samples from an asteroid came back recently?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I guess the mission where they crashed a drone or a probe into this one asteroid, deflected it like 3 to 5 minutes or whatever. So that was a successful mission. I wonder, whenever I see these things, you often wonder. I watched that live, and the people who were in the mission were really. It was almost like in a movie where, if the mission was not successful, it was you know what I mean. The people they seemed to be too emotional.
Right.
Just for a test. And sometimes I wonder if some of these things aren't being actually carried out.
I remember watching a launch, one of the SpaceX launches, and when it came in for a landing, it crashed, and then you can hear people in the control, and they're still clapping. It's like, well, we still call that a success.
What, that didn't have people on board, right?
No. It was like one of the Falcon 1.
Okay.
Yeah, one of their first test flights, and it came in and tried to land vertically, or was it a Blue Origin? I don't know. It was one of the rocket tests, and
that sounds like one of the SpaceX, the Falcon rockets.
That it came in and it crashed. And they're still clapping.
I still think that Elon planned for some of those crashes, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I think they crashed a few just to do some destructive testing.
Right. Yeah. Just to see how.
Because they were like, okay, test over. Like you said, they weren't very emotional about it. But well, do you have anything else that you want to add? I mean, it's hard to be the host of this show because my mind wanders so much sometimes while I'm thinking while you're talking. And what does No Moss say? Stalin removed people he didn't like from history, edited them out of photos, etc.
Yeah.
So that type of technology, even though it's very crude and rudimentary by today's standards, it still happened. People like in Egypt, there were pharaohs that didn't like previous pharaohs, and they attempted to destroy all their monuments and erase them from history. So there's a lot of things going on nowadays that we look back and it's like, did this really happen, or did that really happen? Kind of like what there's a place in Japan, off the coast of Japan, where it looked like there are man-made structures in the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, and somebody kind of made a mock-up of the structure, and it looks like some kind of uh, plaza or something. Did they still make him do PT? Yeah, we still actually had to do PT on the ship, and it caused a lot of bad knee. I would say injuries, but degradation. Yeah, my knees now they creak when I go to bend over or squat down to do something. My knees creak. How long does it take for the military technology to release to the public? Usually it's like a decade, usually like 10 years, because like the SR-71 was around for at least, 20 years before the public knew about it? Yeah, so about 20 years is kind of going rate.
Yeah,
Like
because it was flying over Russia in the 50s, right? The early 50s.
yeah.
Yeah.
Even known technology, it takes about a decade to make it to even production, because like the F-22, I think it took 10 years of trials and stuff like that until the Navy or the military chose to bid on the F-22.
Have you ever been to the Huntsville Space Museum?
No, I've been to the one in Dayton, Ohio, the Air Force Museum in Dayton, Ohio.
They've got an SR-71 sitting out in front of that, and you don't really realize how amazing that ship
yeah,
is.
it's big. I think it's huge.
I didn't realize it was that big, honestly.
Yeah.
And to fly that fast, it just, when you're up close to it, it doesn't look that technical. In other words, the metal surfaces are, I mean, it's all sleek, but you still see like, imperfection. It's not perfectly shaped or whatever. And when you look at how fast that thing flew,
yeah, I think it's like Mach 7 or something.
It's pretty amazing. I hope no one wasn't in charge of that. What does that mean? I hope no.
As far as like, getting all the animals on board or something.
Yeah, that's funny. We had, what are the ships called? The landing. What are the LSTs? What are they called?
Landing. Yeah,
we had one of those come to Chattanooga up the Tennessee River, and I took Alex on it. We went on a tour of it, and what seemed like a small ship, you get on it, and it seems pretty big.
Yeah.
The inside, when you're in the cargo area part of it.
Yeah, one of the when I was my last deployment was on the Wasp. Hey, Rob, good to see you. What do you say to people who believe we never went to the moon to make them change their mind?
Crazy boys.
Yeah, it's a friend of mine kind of brought that up. He said, it must have been one hell of a conspiracy, because you had to hide that all the people who worked on the Saturn V rockets, all the people who worked on the launch site, all the people in mission control, they all had to be in on the secret. So how do you keep a secret from that many people?
I actually know several of the engineers that worked on, they're mechanical engineers, and they worked on like the ventilation systems there are so many people who worked. I don't think people understand how many people worked on these systems, the different engineering. Huntsville is just right down the road. It's only 50 miles from Chattanooga. That's the brain center of all, space flight, right? All the engineers came out. Those people, when they left NASA, they came out to the cities around, and now they're in Chattanooga and Middle Tennessee area. They've started their own engineering firms. These are real people who worked on real systems, who sent real men to the moon.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why it's almost like a hobby to be a part of some conspiracy theory group, right? It's like, and I never met, I'm 60, I'll be 61 this month on the 16th. And I never dreamed that I would ever be a part of some internet community. I'm not really a part of it, but there's no one in real life that I've ever met that denied we went to the moon. It seems to only exist on the internet. And I guess I don't really understand. Yeah, I was saying, well, flat earther is even more rare in real life, I think. But I don't understand why it's so difficult to understand that we went to the moon. I don't. I've never understood that. Sure, maybe they made some. For me, there's a lot of explanations for things like movie sets, or
Right.
maybe we needed to. They did a lot. I know my own. I had a family member who is he's still. I don't know if he's retired yet, but he worked on the wind tunnels in Tullahoma. I'm telling you all, there are so many people that are involved. There wouldn't be this huge nationwide, worldwide network of engineers and testing facilities. This guy, he's named Bill Carpenter, who was an engineer who helped develop the wind tunnel systems. Okay, to test rockets. Okay, why go through all that trouble? Why? Just tell me why. Go through all that trouble to
Well,
create
one of the
multi-millions
conspiracy
and billions of dollars of infrastructure to test and do all this stuff, and it was just fake.
well, one of the conspiracy theory explanations is so we could make the Russians look bad.
But you don't have to go through that much trouble. In World War II, we created inflatables that we blew up and put down on the ground, and it fooled them. Right? That's an easy fake. Okay.
Yeah.
But I'm saying the industry that surrounds the space, NASA and all the engineering that surrounds it, it's just way too big, way too massive, and unnecessary.
Yeah.
If you were going to fake something, you don't need all these millions of people who got all these engineering degrees, who created all these labs and all these testing facilities and all this stuff. Most people don't have a clue what was required to
Right.
get. They just don't have a clue.
Yeah.
So it's
all
easy.
those launches of that big, huge rocket, well, it was fake. Where did those rockets go? They just blow up somewhere, and we hid where they blew up.
You can go to Huntsville and see the Saturn V rocket that
Yeah.
was launched.
Yeah.
I mean, it's there.
Used
Why?
to. Yeah.
If
They
you were going to fake it, why not just build a little model?
Yeah.
Why go through the extent of? And I don't know. It's funny. I mean, when you actually know people who were involved, it's different. It's different when you're involved with an online community and you don't know anybody, and you're just kind of
Yeah.
in this. You got these blinders on,
Yeah. It's
and your whole group thinks the same way, and you're
Mhm.
basically sheep going by, to each other.
Yeah.
But when you live in the real world and you know people, and I probably know 10 different engineers who were involved just because I live in proximity to Huntsville. And I was in the design and build industry. Well, I worked professionally in architecture for 15 years. When I did that, I had to work with engineers, mechanical engineers, plumbing engineers, structural engineers,
Right.
all these people. And a lot of them came out of that industry and started their own businesses because we didn't go to the moon anymore. So they had to start private practices.
Yeah.
And they have pictures on the wall of the things that they freaking built to go to the moon.
Yeah. My first engineering professor, he was an engineer at NASA, and he showed me papers of some of the experiments they did, and they actually made a nuclear powered engine for space, and they were trying to figure out what's the lightest material that and it came out, basically they used like hydrogen and as the propellant, and they would use like nuclear fuel to heat up the hydrogen to
Right. So you're
you know
basically like a particle.
right, a particle accelerator. Yeah.
Yeah. And
To,
it's a bell shape, and then there's a cone.
yeah. Yeah, he showed me, like,
NASA's already got a proof of concept for that.
yeah.
Is that fake? No, it's not fake.
Yeah.
I think again, I hate to say it, but I think some people are just living in their own
They
simulation.
want to live. They want to live in a simulation.
Yeah, the real world is not a simulation, but their world is a simulation.
Yeah.
So, it's a product of their own imagination.
Yeah.
Uh,
But
anyway, I don't know. I didn't mean to get off on that rant, but way to go, Rob. You got me off on that rant. That's a pet peeve. Sorry, that's a pet peeve of mine. I guess when you know so many people who've actually created things that have designed and created, built things, then it's really an insult. Honestly, the whole conspiracy is an insult to human ingenuity, and it bugs me. But anyway, sorry about that.
Yeah. Well, and then there's also, how did they build the pyramids? There's also theories that it was made by aliens.
There's a guy, I investigated this like, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago. There's a guy who has shown the method that he thinks they've used, and he shows it, and he's built his own little pyramid, and he's moving these 20-ton blocks by himself, and he's basically using leverage and a cute little device called a stone.
Yeah.
A small stone under a big stone, and he's using a rope and a log tied to it to just turn it. And then he uses leverage and hydraulic and mechanics to lift.
Yeah.
So he's doing it by himself. So if one man can build a small pyramid, 1,000 men can build a bigger pyramid.
You ever see there's a mysterious structure or compound that was built by this guy out of coral, and nobody knows how he did it by himself. Did you hear about that? I can't remember where it's at. He built like this. He built it for his love. There's a woman that he loved, and so I can't remember if she died and he built it as a tribute to her, or he was trying to woo her by building this thing, but it was made out of coral stone, which is really dense and heavy. But he built it by himself, and nobody really knew how he did it. But there were single pieces that were in the tonnage that he would. And there was one structure, and it was like a revolving monolith. I saw that. Yeah, that was pretty cool.
It's just got a little pebble under it, and then let's see, but he moves these bigger stones. Here we go. He starts moving bigger and bigger stones. See how now he's moved up to this one. Look at that thing. And then I've actually seen the Amish do this. In Tennessee we have a lot of Amish, and I've actually seen this happen before. They all get inside and they rig it up to where they can pick it up. There's probably 100 Amish in there. Okay, or we have a lot of Mennonites too. So they literally move whole buildings. I can't show the whole video. I'll get copyrighted. But I'm just saying, if here's the way he's doing the lever part of it. He jacks up. He uses weights, and then he keeps teetering it and keeps adding blocks under it.
Right.
And then that's how he raises them. So anyway.
Yeah, and the obelisks that kind of like the Washington Monument, the way it was described that they did it was basically they built this big ramp, and then they put it in basically a hole that was filled with sand, and they would drain the sand out.
Yeah.
The monolith would drop straight down.
That's the theory behind the what's the island where the big heads are?
Yeah, Easter Island.
Easter Island. Yeah, thank you. Because most of those structures are underground, actually, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nobody.
Yeah, it's for me, being in the design build industry where I design things and I build them and I see what people can do. I have a whole different perspective than a lot of people on the internet have, where they say, "Oh, humans couldn't do that." Well,
yeah,
we do it. We do a lot of it. We build a lot of stuff.
Yeah, it's just lost technology. It doesn't mean that we couldn't do it. It's just we haven't done it in so long that we forgot how to do it.
You've seen Paco. I've seen Paco and his and one other guy lift a 600-pound steel beam. I have a video of this somewhere, and set it 10 or 15 feet off the ground onto other columns without any equipment, just on their shoulders.
Yeah.
Okay. So there are people who are very strong, very smart, know how to do things, know how to build things. And Anyway, again, I'm ranting, but
Yeah.
it's annoying to me when people, a lot of people who haven't actually gone out and, tried to build something and understand how
Well,
you
it's not
can,
part of their universe. It didn't
part of
exist.
their simulation. Yeah. Yeah, dirt scaffolding. I'm not sure. I think the last theory I like about the pyramids was the internal ramp,
Right,
where
right.
not the ramp that would go around the perimeter, but an internal.
Internal ramp. Yeah, they
Yeah, the
actually did
internal.
like an X-ray, or yeah, and they showed, one guy said, we did an X-ray of the pyramid, and we had this pattern, we didn't know what it was, so we just kind of dismissed it. But then when the latest researchers kind of deduced that this is a possible way that it could have happened, that guy saw the documentary and goes, hey, that's the picture, the image that we got when we did an X-ray of the pyramid. And he showed it to him. It's like, that's exactly how, we theorized it. And I think they, given the I don't know, the historical factor, they couldn't destroy, they couldn't break the pyramid to really prove that that ramp existed. But there was one part that was weathered away enough to where they could go in, and it's like, well, this could have been one of the internal ramps. They found a hallway inside the walls of the pyramid, on one area, that they were able to walk in and see where, there was a like a ramp going up, and then it turned a corner, and another pathway kind of went up. So, but you got to admit, those individual blocks were huge. So how they got them up there, probably with the leverage of that guy. But it was just forgotten technology.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, if you compound the techniques that he's using just as a single person,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I
And then
mean?
you had thousands of people working.
Yeah, he had thousands of people working, pulling, pushing,
Mm-hmm.
Engineering, sweating. People don't know how to lift heavy things, obviously. Yeah. I'll lift with your back. Well, the thing is, once you get to a stone that you can't, raise by hand, you have to use mechanics,
Yeah.
But doesn't mean that they're machines.
I saw one of those ancient alien episodes where they talked about, there was what do they call it, folklore in the local area of where the structure was, that they this machine would make this humming noise, and that's how they were able to move structures, with this thing that. And
Like with
lately,
ultrasound or whatever.
yeah, and lately I've been seeing little shorts about, harmonics and stuff like that. So yeah, there's some possibility of that. I mean, um, you can do some things, but there's a video. It was like a research video where they actually use sound to levitate things. Um, it was like ping pong balls, but um, if you can scale it up, you can potentially, of course, uh, being an engineer, there's a thing called conservation of energy, right?
Yeah.
Mass and energy cannot be created or destroyed. So to move a 10-ton block, or some heavy block, you have to expend as much energy as what you're trying to move. So even
Yeah.
if you use sound, it's not you can use just a little bit of sound to move this big huge, something had to produce a whole lot of sound or a whole lot of vibration.
And humans wouldn't be able to survive being in proximity to that.
Yeah.
Right. You know,
Yeah.
you would scramble your innards with something like that.
Right.
So you wouldn't be able to be around the stone when you were raising it with
Yeah,
that
with that
level of
noise. Yeah.
that level of sound waves. It's kind of funny.
But
Well, do you have any closing thoughts?
no, I just I just like talking about different ideologies, different experiences, and stuff like that. And yeah, I'll entertain some conspiracy theories because you never know. Yeah, anything's possible. Anything's plausible.
I think they're fun, but I think
Yeah.
we have to just keep our wits about us.
Hmm.
You know, I think we have to. Um, I think we have to live in the here and now.
Right.
And honestly, I think some of this gets to the point where it can be anti-productive.
Yeah.
If I have found myself, you know, I do a lot of drawing work on the weekends, and I do some tutoring or SketchUp tutoring. And if you let your mind wander too much and you don't stay focused, um, it really starts to hurt your productivity. And I
Right.
think sometimes I think that this conspiracy stuff, the alien stuff, all this starts to wear on our minds to the point to where we're not productive anymore.
Right. Right.
And
Well,
I think,
there's a balance. Everything in
yeah,
life has there's a balance. And I was listening to something, and they said, before the days of our smartphones or computers and stuff like that, there was a lot of sitting around and just staring into space and daydreaming. A lot of that now we're just overstimulated, and I think a lot of the creativity that came about from just daydreaming is lost because now you've got external stimulation versus
well, yeah, those same people also had to raise food, and
right. Yeah. Yeah.
they, there was a lot of stuff that people did to survive
Hmm.
during those periods, and so it wasn't as if they didn't have the luxury that we have now just to go to the
Right.
order. Like I can just order Walmart now and go by and pick it up. I don't
Yeah.
even have to go into the store anymore. And my grandparents actually raised the food that they.
Yeah.
So after a long day of working in the garden, if you're sitting around, thinking about aliens, that's one thing.
Yeah.
But if you're sitting around all day thinking about aliens, that's another thing.
Eating Cheetos and playing Xbox.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, it's going to be kind of hard to compare modern humans to that generation, the great generation, the greatest generation. They weren't. They didn't let it. They didn't let it hamper their productivity. That's
Right. Right. Well, and if you didn't plant your crops on time, you didn't eat.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Nowadays, people take a lot for granted, and that's one of the things I was talking with somebody else about. Where you know, do you know Mayhem Country Living? You ever watch his channel?
I think I've seen. Is he a homesteader?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he's a prepper, kind of a prepper kind of
Yeah,
guy.
I think the guy I'm thinking about is one of the homesteader people.
Yeah.
He's kind of the Amish guy. He has the long beard.
No.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
He's a regular guy. I mean, he has a 9-to-5 job and stuff like that. But he does gardening, and he does hydroponics and canning and stuff like that. Trying to maximize his earnings. But one of the videos he made something, and I said, well, there's that saying, bad times make good people, good people make bad times, or make good times, good people make good times, but good times make bad people. Because during good times, people have now instead of spending most of their time being productive and trying to survive, now they have spare time to think about doing stupid stuff. And the penalties for being inefficient or being lazy is lower, because you look at the homeless people. I mean, homeless people in America are actually way better off than people in third world countries. People in third world countries are literally eating dirt. But you got homeless people or lazy people here in the U.S. Welfare, not downing welfare people, but the stereotypical welfare person. They think they're suffering. Is like, well, you don't know what suffering is. I mean, yeah, in relative terms, you're not doing as well as other people are in America, but Yeah, you don't really know what suffering is, and that's one of the, I would say, benefits. But one of the things that really gives you perspective, being in the military, is you see other countries, you see how they live, and um, it makes you appreciate what you have a lot more than people who haven't traveled. And just like, we were talking about people in their own reality, in their own simulation, they don't have the perspective of you and I, who have lived real life experiences and know people who have done real things. So anyway,
Well, before we go, I wanted to let you know that as a guest, you get a free PiFi shirt and a mug, or let's see, you can either get a coffee mug or a glass that has the
PiFi.
PiFi glass on it.
I'll do the glass. That way I can.
That's a new tradition I'm starting. I'm going to start giving the guests a T-shirt and a cup or a mug or a glass. So I really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me.
I've been wanting to do this for a long time.
Yeah, I enjoyed the conversation.
It's awesome. I'll have to have you back sometime. Maybe we'll have a little panel. I have another Brad Voorhees is a vet. I have a couple other vets that we can maybe get to have a round table.
People call him Jason.
What's that?
Do people call Brad Jason Voorhees?
Oh, what? I don't get that. That's
Jason Voorhees, Friday the 13th.
Oh no, sorry. I've never really understood the Friday the 13th thing, so I don't know who that. I didn't know who it was.
Yeah, the character's named Jason Voorhees. I think it's either Halloween or Friday the 13th. I don't know.
I didn't think he had a name. That's funny.
Yeah. Let me see. Let me Google it.
Especially a last name. Usually
it might be Halloween.
Like Chucky. Does Chucky have a last name? Chucky Smith.
Jason Voorhees. It's Friday the 13th. Yeah. Jason Voorhees, character from Friday the 13th series. First appeared young son of camp cook turned killer Mrs. Voorhees. Yeah. Yeah. So that's the Friday the 13th killer is Jason Voorhees.
All right. Well, we've gone an hour and a half, and like I said, I'll love to have you back sometime when we go. We'll have a panel maybe discussion.
Yeah,
I'd like to introduce you to a couple of my other friends who are vets and just have a discussion about some of this stuff. And that would be awesome.
All right.
So thanks, Salty. I've got your address, so I'll be sending you the shirt and mug.
Okay.
And I really appreciate it. And thanks a lot.
All right. Good night, everybody. Good night.
Good night. See ya.
See ya.
Okay. If you guys want to support the show, you can go to PiFiShow.com and you can buy a shirt or a mug just for fun. And there's a link there. And I want to say thanks to everyone who watched. And if you have ideas for guests for the show, you can go, there's a suggestion box there or a hot tip button for a guest. And if you have contact information for that, there's also a reward for hot tips for certain people I have on the most wanted list there. It's kind of a neat thing I started. So, but I appreciate everybody watching, and I will see you next time.
What you are about to see is a real-life story. The accounts have gone into great detail to give each side's version of this, an exclusive one, we understand. One of the most talked about